So, Dr. Julie, when you have somebody come into your practice or write into you online and they're having trouble just being with other people, very shy, very introverted, like feel very awkward around other people, what are some tools and strategies that you recommend?
This is kind of quite a personal one for me, really, because I remember I was such a shy child, right? You know,
Really?
I said about I read a lot. It was mostly because I was the shy, quiet one in the corner. Nobody would ever have dreamt that I would do stuff like this, including me. And I even remember when I got to clinical training and I'm sat in a room with someone and I'm being assessed, doing an assessment of that person.
Sounds horrible.
And I remember thinking in that moment, why have I chosen this career? I hate talking to people. I hate being looked at by other people. And here I am doing both at the same time. And then the idea of putting stuff out there publicly only started because it felt like a nice thing to do. Never imagined it would turn into something where I was doing live TV or radio. And I was terrified of doing that stuff. And in all honesty, I had to keep doing it because I felt that I had to practice what I preach about how if you struggle with being around people or talking to people or public speaking or whatever it is, you have to spend time doing it. You know, if you want your confidence to grow, you have to be able to go where you have none and to be able to sit there for a while and be willing to be the beginner and stick with it and look after yourself when it doesn't go well. That was key, I think, with the going on live TV and things like that. The only way I was really willing to do that was if I fully committed to myself that I would have my own back. If it all went wrong, you know, if I tripped over and flashed my underwear to the nation, whatever, I was not going to kick myself when I was down. You know, I was quite a sort of academically and things like that. I guess I was always quite hard on myself. And, you know, that highly self-critical stuff was probably quite there when I was younger. But I had to say, there is no way I can do this and be this vulnerable if I'm going to speak to myself like that. Just not a chance. So I had to be fully committed to being in my own head, being like a coach. So someone who would have the absolute, my best interests at heart the whole time, not speak to me like I was, you know, a piece of shit, and treat myself in a way that, you know, a coach would treat an elite athlete, to say, you know, when you're down, this is how we get back up and we move forward.
You have this quote, "It's not so much that the socially confident have worked out how to prevent awkward moments. It's simply that they barely focus on trying to avoid them at all. Sometimes focusing only on what you're trying to avoid leads you straight to it."
Yeah.
And so if you have somebody that is listening right now, and this is really like an issue, like I feel awkward around other people. I'm not good in big groups. I don't like to put myself out there. What assignment or what would you tell them if they were sitting across from you? Because that person might be listening right now. What do they actually need to do?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's two things here. The one is that you take your time. You don't start with the scariest thing. Any type of fear that you're tackling, what we would do in therapy is we create a scale. So we would list all the things, all the different situations that are scary, with the least scary at the bottom. So maybe if it's a social anxiety thing, maybe the idea of saying hello to that person at the local store when I pick up my paper or whatever fills me with anxiety. But I know I could do it if I really tried. That would go at the bottom. And then maybe a sort of 100% worst case scenario is I've got to speak at a friend's wedding or something like that. And there's loads of scenarios in between that are all slightly tweaked and slightly different that you might think are more or less scary. And you don't start at the top, you start at the bottom. So you start with a thing that feels kind of manageable, but a challenge. And you repeat it as much as you possibly can, because what you do is everything that's new and novel, you will get this hike in your stress response. So your brain is saying, we're not sure about this. Anything could happen. So we're going to increase your level of alertness so that you're ready for anything. And that's really what it is. That's what's happening. You're getting that level of alertness so that you can cope with it. But you experience that as stress, so it's uncomfortable. And so if you're tackling those scenarios, what we often get people to do when they're in it is focus on that idea that your attention is a spotlight. And
Okay.
you have control of that.
Okay, so I've now pushed myself to go to this networking meeting. I did not want to go. I hate small talk. I'm feeling awkward. I'm now standing in that semicircle
yeah.
with like 4 people. I keep staring at people's shoes and I'm thinking, this is horrible. I don't know what to say. Like, so how do I use the spotlight tool right now?
So when you're socially anxious, your focus will be inward. It will be on, how are other people perceiving me? Am I standing funny? Am I fidgeting? Am I saying stuff wrong? How am I coming across?
Yep.
And it will be all this kind of inner turmoil stuff that just keeps triggering more and more anxiety. Whereas someone who's confident and not socially anxious will not be focused inwards on themselves. They will be focused on the other person and trying to get to know them or find stuff out about them. And actually, I've sat in rooms with people who've really struggled with anxiety and paranoia. And we've had to have kind of big care meetings with all their different professionals. And I remember sitting with someone and getting them to take notes about what the plan was. And so all that was a focus of that spotlight of attention. So rather than thinking who's looking at me, who's thinking what, it was who's just said something that is part of the plan. Let me write it down. And you just take control of that spotlight of attention. And then what you do is you get this experience that it can go well. It can go okay. And I can practice where I focus my attention, and it influences how I feel. And that is the superpower starting to really open up, this idea that I can take control of this one thing in this scenario, and it influences the feeling, or it makes that feeling slightly more manageable. So it doesn't take it away. It still might always be a little bit awkward, a little bit uncomfortable. The self-doubt might always be there in a little way, but you know what to do with it. And that's the key, is you're not trying to take it all away. You're just showing yourself, proving to yourself through action that you can do something with it.